Hey guys, Sean here. Today I'll be profiling my updated Buster Blader deck. This is pretty much a Buster Blader Bystial build, but it's also a heavy trap based build, running a lot of really strong traps in the deck. Buster Blader, a great control deck, one of my favourite decks in the game. I'm really happy with this build. Although Tenpai is not as prominent as it used to be, this is a fantastic deck against Tenpai, which is still seeing some play, but it's also great against a lot of decks. So let's get right into the profile. Let's begin with 3 copies of your Buster Whelp, which is your main normal summon of the deck. On summon, searches you any Destruction Sword card from your deck to your hand. This will usually be your Prologue of the Destruction Swordsman. Buster Whelp on its own is a 1-card combo. You will summon this, search your Prologue, you'll link this off so you get a Dragon Engrave, and then you'll be able to activate your Prologue on your opponent's turn, which will set you up for your Buster lock. But for now, triple Buster Whelp, you can't go wrong, your best normal summon in the deck, so definitely max them out. Next up, 1 copy of your Dragon Buster Destruction Sword. While this card is equipped to a monster, your opponent won't be able to special summon monsters from the extra deck, which is fantastic extra deck lock. Your Buster Dragon in the extra deck is able to equip this from the graveyard to your Buster Blader monster, which is the main way you'll get up the extra deck lock, which is really good. You have ways to dump this to the grave, so the 1 copy is fantastic. Next up, 2 copies of your Buster Blader the Destruction Swordsmaster. We're running the retrain mainly because your Link 2 Protector Whelp is able to dump this card from deck to grave. However, it can't do that with the original. You're not really going to be summoning this card, but its effect is, if it destroys a monster on the field, you can equip that monster from your opponent's grave to it, and then you can send an equipped card equipped to this monster to the graveyard to destroy all cards your opponent controls with that type. Since most decks are all 1 type, this is pretty decent at removing your opponent's monsters. Won't always come up, you're really not summoning this card that often, but it's not terrible. You do need to run at least 2 copies for your Prologue to be able to resolve. Prologue needs at least 1 of these cards in the deck. So we run 2 copies. It is a bit of a brick, but you need to do it. 2 copies of the retrain of Buster Blader. Next up, this is your second best normal summon in the deck, triple Black Metal Dragon. So it's a dragon, so it's good for setting up your graveyard. You can link this off into something like a Striker Dragon, and then when it's sent to grave, you can add a Red Eyes card from deck to hand. We have 2 choices. We have your Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, which can special summon itself by banishing a dragon monster you control. And whilst in the field, you can special summon a dragon monster from your hand or grave. So a great extender, what you can do is you can special summon your Black Metal Dragon from the graveyard, and since Black Metal Dragon is out once per turn, if you link it off, you'll be able to search again for another Red Eyes monster, being your Red Eyes Black Fullmetal Dragon. What Fullmetal Dragon does is that you can reveal it, shuffle it into your deck, and search for the trap card Max Metalmorph. You'll use Max Metalmorph to tribute a level 5 or higher Dark Dragon monster to special summon your Fullmetal Dragon from your deck. And whilst on the field, it functions as an Omni Negate. Whenever your opponent activates a spell, trap, or monster effect, you can negate the effect, and you can also burn your opponent as well, so it's a really good card. A real simple way to get an Omni Negate in the field, so definitely run this little package here. It's fantastic, sets up the grave, lets you extend, and can end you on an Omni Negate, so definitely run this little Red Eyes package right here. Next up for the Bystial package, we have triple Bystial Lubellion. You can discard this card from your hand to search any Bystial monster from your deck. And if you control a level 6 or higher dark monster, you can tribute it to special summon this card from your hand or grave. And whilst on the field, you can activate its effect where you can place 1 branded spell trap from your deck directly to the field. The only card we run in this deck is your branded Regained. Lubellion does so much for the deck. Discards itself to the grave, so you already have a dragon in the grave for your Buster Blader plays. Searches you cards, gets you advantage off a Regained. It's just a fantastic card in the deck. We definitely max this out alongside our other little Bystials. For the rest of the Bystials, we have 1 copy of your Magnamhut, 1 of your Saronir, 1 Baldrake, and 1 Druiswurm. The main reason I run 1 of each is because they're all once per turn, so if you have multiple in your hand, you want to be able to summon each of them. But you can definitely get away with mixing up the ratios here. You can run more Druiswurm if you want. They're all able to banish a letter dark monster from either player's grave to special summon themselves, and this is a quick effect if your opponent controls a monster. Magnamhut on summon will be able to search you any dragon monster during the end phase. Saronir, when it's sent to grave, can dump a Bystial or a branded spell trap. Baldrake, if your opponent special summons a monster from the extra deck, you can tribute 1 other light or dark monster to banish the monster your opponent summoned. And Druiswurm, if it's sent to grave, you can target a monster your opponent controls and send it to grave. So they all serve a really good function. They're all really good extenders as well. Of course, more dragons to fill up your grave. Really good against certain matchups as well. So I definitely like running this little Bystial package right here. Next up, we have a really cool card in this deck, triple Wannabee. What this card does is that during the end phase, you will discard this from your hand, and you will excavate the top cards of your deck up to the number of unused spell trap card zones your opponent has, which if you're going first will be 5. So you'll excavate the top 5 cards of your deck, and you can set one trap that you excavate right onto your field, but you need to send it to the grave during the next end phase. This is basically Pot of Prosperity specifically for traps. It can even be used going second because it can activate during any end phase. So if your opponent didn't set many back row, you can activate this and then potentially find a Prologue, which you can activate immediately during your next turn, which is really, really good. This can also find you some other really good traps as well. We run a lot of really good traps in this deck. So I really like it. It is also a light, so it has good synergy with your Bystials. I think it's really, really cool, so I definitely like running the triple Wannabee in this deck. And finally for the monsters, triple Ash, just a really good hand trap. Can't really go wrong. Of course this is a heavy trap build, but Ash Blossom is a hand trap that fits into pretty much any deck, so 3 copies of Ash, you cannot go wrong. Onto the spells now. We have 1 copy of your Pot of Prosperity. We would run this card at as many as we could, but unfortunately it's at 1. It allows you to banish 3 or 6 cards from your extra deck face down, excavate that many cards, and add 1 from your deck to your hand. Great for searching your deck for stuff like your Prologue or any missing combo piece. We have plenty of space in the extra deck, so we always have enough cards to banish, so just a really good consistency card, fits really well in this deck. Next up, 1 Branded Regained. Because of our Bystial Lubellion, we're able to activate this directly from the deck. This is an insane card. If a Light or Dark monster is banished, we can shuffle that card back into the deck to draw a card. All our Bystials are going to be banishing Lights and Darks, so we'll always be able to draw a bunch of cards off this. And when your opponent summons a monster, if you have a Bystial in grave, you can use this to special summon that Bystial back from your grave, which is really, really good for the ground game. Really cool in combination with your Magnamhut, because it's able to search your cards on your own turn, and then going over to your opponent's turn, you can summon it back and search again, which is fantastic. I can even see you running this at 2 copies, but the 1 copy is more than enough. Fantastic card in the deck. And for the final spells, triple Forbidden Droplets. It's pretty unique in this deck. You're able to get rid of certain cards from your hand that you don't want. So your Buster Blader monsters, sometimes you just want them in grave instead of in your hand. So being able to get rid of them is really good. But of course, a great board breaker, great for going first and second. You can replace this with whatever board breaker you like, but I think Forbidden Droplet fills so many purposes in the deck, so I think this is a very good option to run in the deck. Onto the traps now. We have a bunch here. For the Buster Blader traps, we have triple Prologue of the Destruction Swordsman. What this does is that for cost, you will be sending a Destruction Sword card and a Buster Blader monster from your deck to the grave in order to special summon your Buster Dragon from your extra deck. Buster Dragon is your extra deck monster that turns all your opponent's monsters to Dragon type, and the main card you'll be sending off your Prologue is your copy of your Destruction Sword Memories, which if discarded in the graveyard, you can banish it alongside fusion material for a Buster Blader fusion monster to special summon it. So your main combo goes, you activate Prologue, dumping Memories and a Buster Blader monster for cost, and if your opponent has no response, you can chain Memories to banish itself to fusion summon your Buster Blader fusion monster. So on resolution, you'll be ending on both your Buster Blader fusion monster and your Buster Dragon, which will be preventing your opponent from activating the effects of Dragon type monsters. And since your Buster Dragon is turning all your opponent's monsters to Dragon type, it's essentially a one-sided skill drain, which is insanely good. So this little ratio here is essential for the deck. Next up, triple Trap Trick, which is essentially an extra 3 copies of any trap in the deck. You can banish 1 normal trap from your deck to set another copy of it from your deck, and it can be activated that turn. However, you can only activate 1 trap card after you activate this effect. Fantastic, searches you any trap in the deck, really good for finding your Prologue or any other utility trap in the deck, and even the side deck, so definitely run Trap Trick. It is one of the best cards in the deck. For some more tech traps here, we have double Ice Dragon's Prison, which is a really cool card. We run 2 because we can Trap Trick it, so we can banish 1 to set the other. What it does is that we can target a monster in our opponent's graveyard, special summon it but negates effects, and then we can banish 2 monsters in the field, one that we control and one that our opponent controls, that have the same type. So of course against certain matchups, if they're running a lot of monsters of the same type, you're just able to banish pretty much anything on the field. But also if you have your Buster Dragon on field, which turns everything to Dragon type, you're just able to banish any one of your dragons and any monster your opponent controls, which is really, really cool, and it's really good against hand traps as well. If your opponent hand traps you, you can activate this card to special summon that hand trap from the grave, and because it's negated while it's on the field, it will resolve negated, and it basically gives you protection from hand traps, which is really, really cool. Definitely run 2 copies of your Ice Dragon's Prison. Next up, double Heavy Storm Duster. You can target 2 spell traps in the field and destroy them, but then you cannot conduct your battle phase for that turn, which is not really a downside. It's a trap card, you're going to be using this on your opponent's turn, but a really nice form of back removal in the main deck, and easily found off of your Trap Trick, so I really like the 2 copies of Heavy Storm Duster. Next up, 1 Max Metalmorph, which is important for your Fullmetal Red Eyes monster. What you'll do with this card is tribute a level 5 or higher dragon monster to special summon your Fullmetal Red Eyes monster from your deck, and then Max Metalmorph will be equipped to it, which will make it untargetable and not able to be destroyed by spell cards, and will give it a 400 attack boost. Which is pretty cool, turns it into a pretty strong monster, and makes it pretty hard to get rid of, but the main purpose is just being able to bring out your Fullmetal Red Eyes monster, so we have to run the 1 copy in the deck. And finally, triple Imperm, not only a great hand trap, but we can even search this off of our trap trick, and what's cool about that is that we can place it in any zone we want, so we're able to negate cards in certain columns, so that's a really cool way you can use this card in combination with trap trick. But 3 Imperm is just a classic, fits in any deck, so definitely run the 3 copies. On to the extra deck now, we have 2 copies of your Buster Blader, the Dragon Destroyer Swordsman. It needs 1 Buster Blader and 1 Dragon Monster as fusion material. Whilst on the field, it gains 1000 attack and defense for each Dragon Monster your opponent controls and in your graveyard. And it turns all Dragon type monsters your opponent controls to defense position, and prevents your opponent from activating the effect of Dragon type monsters in their possession. Now what possession means is from their field, hand, graveyard, anywhere that they have a Dragon monster they cannot activate the effect. It cannot attack directly, but it does do piercing, so it's a very strong boss monster. It's really good, especially in combination with 2 copies of your Buster Dragon, which is the card that, whilst on the field, turns all your opponent's monsters to Dragon type, which in combination with Buster Blader will turn them all to defense, prevent them from activating their effects, and you'll gain a bunch of attack. Really fantastic combo here. Buster Dragon is also able to equip a Destruction Sword card from your grave to your Buster Blader, which is the main way you'll get your Dragon Buster extra deck lock onto your Buster Blader. And if you're only able to get out your Buster Dragon, it can also bring back a Buster Blader monster from your grave, which can be used in certain situations, maybe to go into something like an SP, which is really cool. 2 copies of each because we're definitely able to summon them more than once. This is the main strategy of the Buster Blader deck. Next up, a Synchro 9, we have 1 Hot Red Dragon Retrieving Abyss. The only way we're making this is with our Dragon Buster and something like our Buster Whelp, which is a level 1 tuner. You won't always go into this card, but when you do, it's really good. It has a quick effect where you can target 1 card in the field and negate its effect until the rest of the turn, which is a really good way to negate cards in the field. It won't come up all the time, but when it does, it's a fantastic card. Next up onto the links, we have 1 copy of Striker Dragon. The main use of this card is to get your Dragon monsters off the field. It needs 1 level 4 lower Dragon monster, so that will be your Buster Whelps and your Black Metal Dragon. For Buster Whelp, getting it into grave is really important for your Buster Blader combo, but for your Black Metal Dragon, it's really important to get into the grave to activate its effect, where you can add your Red Eyes cards. So really important to run the 1 copy of your Striker Dragon. In combination with your Relinquished Anima, it needs 1 level 1 monster, which your Buster Whelps and your Black Metal Dragons are all level 1. So you're easily able to send them to grave using Anima, and against certain matchups, you're able to steal your opponent's monsters, which is really good. But again, the main purpose is just to get cards from the field into the grave. Next up, it is a Dragon deck, so 2 copies of your Heretic Seals. Just needs 2 Dragon monsters. It has a quick effect where you can tribute a Dragon monster to bounce a card on the field back to the hand, and when it's tributed, you can special summon any Dragon monster from your deck, but change its attack and defense to 0. So, fantastic card. Being able to bounce and special summon any dragon from the deck is fantastic. You'll usually be summoning something like a Magnamhut to get you a search, but you can summon any dragon in the deck. Just a fantastic card to run. 2 copies because you can pretty much always come into it. Next up, another link too, we have 1 of your Protector Whelp of the Destruction Swordsman. A really important card in the deck. You won't always go into it, but it's very good for your combos. On summon, it will send any Destruction Sword card from your deck to the grave. So really good for setting up your Prologue combo if you're missing out on certain cards. It can even send your Dragon Buster to set up your extra deck lock. Just a fantastic card. And it can also let you special summon a Buster Blader monster from your hand if you have one clogging up your hand, which is really good for link climbing as well. And an important effect to note is that if this card's on the field and you have a Buster Blader monster on the field that did not attack, while your opponent has no cards on the field, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to your Buster Blader monster's attack. This is important because your Buster Blader cannot attack directly, so if your opponent has no cards on the field, so you're still able to burn your opponent using a Protector Whip. Next up, more generic stuff, 1 IP and 1 SP. IP lets you link summon on your opponent's turn, and you'll be link summoning into your SP Little Knight, which on summon, if it used an extra deck card as material, can target a card on the field or in the graveyard and banish it. Fantastic removal and a really good disruption. It also has the effect where if your opponent activates a card or effect, you can target 2 monsters, 1 you control and 1 on the field, and banish them both until the end phase. Really important interaction with your Buster Dragon. Because Prologue summons your Buster Dragon will be destroyed during the next end phase after it was summoned. But if you use your SP Little Knight and banish your Buster Dragon, you can circumvent this and your Buster Dragon won't be destroyed. So you can pretty much keep your Buster Lock up indefinitely which is really important. But overall, great interruption, definitely run these two cards. Next up, one Unicorn and one Access Code Talker. Unicorn is just a good way to link climb and to spin some of your opponent's cards, and it's a great way to go into Access Code, which can pop a bunch of cards, get up to really high attack. Really helps closing out games. You're able to get a lot of free bodies on the field, and sometimes you just need the extra boost off of your Access Code. So linking off some of your Buster Dragons and your Buster Bladers might be useful in going into your Access Code, which can clean up the game from there. And last but not least, we have one TY-PHON. Fantastic card in decks like these. So how you summon this card is that if your opponent has summoned 2 monsters from the extra deck during this turn or the previous turn, you can special summon this card from your extra deck by using a monster on your field with the highest attack. However, it does prevent you from summoning for the rest of the turn, but it's really good going second. It prevents monsters from activating their effects if they have 3k or more attack, which doesn't really affect us, but it can stop a lot of other decks. And you can attach a material to target one monster in the field and return to the hand. Fantastic card in the deck, really good for going second, really good in simplified game states. It's just a really strong monster to have, so I love running this card. Definitely consider running TY-PHON. That's it for the extra deck. We'll move on to the side deck now. We have one copy of your Wizard Buster Destruction Sword, which is essentially your Dragon Buster, but if it's equipped to a monster, it prevents your opponent from activating cards in the grave, which is really good against certain matchups. That's why we run it in the side. And you can set this up the same way you'll set up your Dragon Buster combo, so the one Wizard Buster is a really good option in the side deck. Next up, triple Artifact Lancia. We all know why. Malice is a menace, so this is a great card at countering it. Chaos Hunter is another good option. It is level 7 body, and it might have some synergy, allowing you to go into something like a Buster Dragon. But for the most part, I think Artifact Lancia is more versatile. Stops your opponent from banishing cards for the rest of the turn, which is fantastic. Just keep in mind it might conflict with your Bystials, so just make sure you use this card at the right time. It is devastating to Malice, and a really good card in the side deck. Next up, onto some really strong trap cards we can use off of our trap trick. We have Double Dimension Barrier, pretty much for Raziel and any other deck that uses a specific extra deck type. So you can declare one extra deck type except for links, and your opponent will not be able to special summon that card for the rest of the turn. And any of that type of monster on the field will have its effect negated until the end of the turn, which is really good. A great way to cripple your opponent if they're playing decks like Raziel and stuff like that. Can stop some of your opponent's Fiendsmith monsters as well. Just a fantastic card, and you only need the 2 copies because you're able to get this off your trap trick, so definitely run 2 copies of the barrier. Next up, in a similar vein, we have 2 copies of Different Dimension Ground. When it's activated, any monster sent to the grave will be banished instead. Again, we can just get this off of our trap trick. Really good against so many decks. Just keep in mind this really important ruling that Xyz material are not considered monsters, they're considered material, so they will be sent to grave just fine. So keep that in mind against matchups like Raziel. But against a lot of matchups, it's fantastic, a really great card, so definitely consider running this card. Next up, triple Solemn Judgment. We're able to find this off our Wannabee, which is really nice. We can pay half our life points to negate a summon or a spell trap card activation, which is really good. I think this card is really good going into game 3. Your opponent will be siding in a lot of board breakers and stuff, and that's really tough for Buster Blader to deal with. So having a Solemn Judgment in the back is really useful, preventing our opponent from right-decking our board or evenly matching us, or even Dark Rulering us, which is really good. So I think the triple Solemn Judgment is a fantastic card to run in the side deck. Speaking of evenly matched, we run it ourselves. It can be trap tricked, so in certain situations it can come up. It is awkward though, because if you're using trap trick, you will be setting it to the field first, so your opponent will be able to play around it. Also, not really good against Lancia, so keep that in mind. You can switch this out with other board breakers, but I think it's really good, especially in combination with your Forbidden Droplets, so definitely consider running triple evenly matched. And finally, for a bit of fun, we have 1 copy of Anti-Spell Fragrance. It is only at 1, and you're not able to trap trick it, but you can fairly easily find it off of your Wannabee, which is really cool. If you get this card, it will pretty much shut down any deck that focuses on spells. So really cool against Malice with the Sky Striker variant, which is really popular now. Pretty much shuts them down completely. So it's a fun card to run. It's at 1 copy, but you definitely can find it in the deck, so definitely consider running this card. So that's it for my updated Buster Blader deck profile. Overall, I'm very happy with this deck. Buster Blader has always been one of my favorite decks. It's just such a fun deck to play. The Dragon side is really fun, and locking your opponent out of a bunch of stuff just feels great. So let me know what you think in the comments. If you have any questions or even suggestions, let me know. If you want to build this deck in real life, we do have a TCG player affiliate link, which you can check out in the description. If you buy cards using that link, it directly supports the channel and helps us keep up the content. If you also want to support the channel, you can consider becoming a member. You'll have early access to all of our videos as soon as we make them. Special shoutouts to Mr. Kieran Thompson, our first YouTube member. We really appreciate the support. So thanks for watching, let me know what you think in the comments, and stay tuned for more Buster Blader content.